The founders believed that government at its best was a necessary evil. George Washington put it this way: "Government is like fire, a dangerous servant and a fearful master." They understood that power corrupts, and that power would need to be separated. No one entity of the government could become too powerful and thus corrupt. They separated the federal government into these distinct entities. The House of Representatives, which would represent the people, members were to be elected by the people of a district that contained approximately 30,000 people. The Senate would represent the states. Senators were to be selected by state lawmakers. The judiciary, which would settle legal disputes. And the executive branch that would manage the government according to the Constitution and the law. The states were independent, financed the federal government, and retained all power not given to the federal government by the Constitution. And lastly, the Second Amendment assured that the country would have a well-armed population, capable of putting down any developing tyranny. By 1913, the United States had become the richest country in the world. In 1913, the 16th Amendment was declared passed, giving the federal government the power to directly tax Americans' income. This shifted the exclusive power of the states to directly tax citizens. The federal government had no further need to seek funding from the states. Also, in 1913, the 17th Amendment was passed, which mandated that United States senators would no longer be chosen by state legislators but would be directly elected by the people. This shifted the separation of powers and meant that the states no longer had representation. In 1913, 4 United States senators, on Christmas Eve, while most senators were at home for the holidays, by voice vote, created a privately held bank, which would have the power to control the money supply. To help confuse the public, they named it the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is not federal, and has no reserves. President Woodrow Wilson quickly signed the bill into law. As we can see by the graph, 1913 was the year the states lost most of their power, severely damaging the separation of power. The consolidation of power in Washington, D.C. had begun. Compounding the problem, President Richard M. Nixon ended the gold standard in 1971.
I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
A debt-based fiat currency system allows the federal government unlimited spending power, at the expense of the value of the dollar. The Constitution, Section 8, gives Congress the job of creating the money supply, and setting the value thereof. Section 10, says that no state shall make anything but gold or silver, legal tender in payment of debt. The value of money was set at $35, equals 1 ounce of gold, in 1935, and remains so, until President Nixon, unconstitutionally, ended the gold standard, in 1971. On September 14, 2019, gold was selling at $1,490 per ounce. Which means that the dollar has lost 98% of its value since 1971. Fiat currency always reverts to its intrinsic value, which is zero. Debt-based fiat currency systems are impossible to maintain, and throughout history have always failed. Here is a short video that explains why.
If you borrow the very first dollar into existence, and that's the only dollar that exists on the planet, but you promise to pay it back plus another dollar's worth of interest, where do you get the second dollar to pay the interest? The answer is that you have to borrow that one into existence and promise to pay it back with interest as well. So now there are $2 in existence, but you owe 4, and so on and so on. The result is there's never enough currency to pay the debt. There is always more debt in the system than there is currency in existence to pay the debt. Therefore, The whole system is impossible. It is finite. It will come to an end one day. Whether you're making a payment on a loan or paying tax to make a payment on a bond, the portion of the payment that goes to pay off the principal extinguishes that portion of the debt. But the debt also extinguishes the currency. Currency and debt are like matter and antimatter. When they meet, they annihilate each other. If we just pay off the principal only on all the loans and bonds that exist, the entire currency supply just vanishes. So if we don't go deeper into debt every year, look what happens. The whole thing goes into a deflationary collapse under the weight of those payments. Politicians and pundits alike talk about balancing the budget, paying down the debt, and living within our means. They don't understand that that is deflationary. It is impossible to do under our current monetary system without collapsing the whole economy.
The destruction of the separation of power is almost complete. The federal government, and the deep state that controls it, is almost in full control. The only thing left is that well-armed public. The Founding Fathers, in their wisdom, gave us the Bill of Rights. The Founders understood that rights come from God, and not the government. The Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, don't grant us rights. They restrict government. The important line in the Second Amendment is, "The right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed." Keep means, to have, or to own. Bear means, to carry on one's person. People means, all the people. Democide, is murder by one's own government. Democide, was the way of the world, for most of the time mankind has been on earth. The founders were well aware of democide, and that is why they felt it was important we had the right to defend ourselves with guns. Stalin, Pol Pot, Hitler, and Mao are just a few examples of government leaders who disarmed their citizens before murdering millions of them. In the 20th century alone, over 200 million people have been murdered by their own governments.
For guns in this country. You've gone further. You said, quote, Americans who own AR-15s and AK-47s will have to sell them to the government, all of them. You know the critics call this confiscation. Are you proposing taking away their guns, and how would this work?
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We're not going to allow it to be used against our fellow Americans anymore.
What do these two groups have in common? The answer is 1. They are all socialists, and 2. They want to take your guns. The first gun laws in America also came from Democrats in the South, designed to protect the Ku Klux Klan from black people fighting back. What do these two groups have in common? 1. They are all Democrats. The KKK was founded in 1865 by Democrats. 2. They want to take your guns, so you can't fight back. The fight to take your guns is done by multiple methods. What is a red flag law? 16 states have already passed red flag laws. Here is a short video explaining what a red flag gun law is.
Looking at with these red flag laws. If for whatever reason I don't like you or I have an issue with you, I can say that you are a menace. You are a danger to yourself. You are a danger to other people. And let's talk about what type of person can trigger this red flag law. The list is huge. The list of people who can levy an unfounded accusation against you. Man, I had to write it down. Listen to this long laundry list of people who can levy an accusation that you are a threat to yourself or other people. A parent, son, daughter, brother, sister, grandparent, uncle, aunt, first cousin, spouse, ex-spouse, someone who lives in the same household, ex-girlfriend, girlfriend. You had a dating relationship. You have a child in common. You have a former dating relationship. You used to share the same household. You share the same current household. Your roommates, ex-roommates, you had a close relationship, and the list gets even longer. Now we start incorporating law enforcement, police officer, sheriff, deputy, state police officer, and any federal law enforcement agency. If any one of these people, who is basically everyone, levies a complaint, whether it is truthful or whether it is baseless, they can go start the proceedings to initiate an emergency procedure against you to strip you of your gun rights. Now, if the allegations are so salacious and so evil and so heinous, they will conduct this hearing in secrecy, in private. You will not even know that they're conducting this hearing in court regarding your Second Amendment right. Once they have decided that, yes, you should have your gun taken away from you without your ability to face your accusers and to offer your side of the story, they will then initiate a raid upon your house. They will literally come at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. They will barge into your home with the appropriate warrants, and they will take all of your firearms. And they will take them and they will secure them until at such point you then go to a court and then prove to the court that you're not a danger to yourself or to other people. It is completely turning the whole concept of due process on its head. In this country, the country that I believe that we live in, you are innocent until you are proven guilty. Not with these red flag laws.
Lord Acton said, "All power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We are almost at the point that all power is in the hands of the federal government, and the deep state that runs it." Benjamin Franklin said, "Any society that would give a little liberty to gain a little security will deserve neither, and lose both." History tells us, Franklin was right.